and her, well, I guess we moved out here before, you know, I actually got out of the service. And there were a large number of people from my office who lived out here in Bowie at the time. Among them was Rennie Johnson.
Oh, gosh.
And Rennie was in the real estate business, as you all know.
Yeah, his office was right next door to mine.
Right. And Rennie and I were great friends. And
another Air Force man.
Another Air Force, that's right. These are all Air Force people.
Yes.
And so it was hard not to buy from Rennie.
Oh.
and so we ended up moving out to Bowie, and we bought our first house out here, which was a Cape Cod. And then later we bought the colonial that we live in, resale. Leo Green lived directly behind us at that point in time for a short period of time.
Former state senator.
Yeah. So that's where we've lived ever since. So
I have to tell you a good story quickly about Rennie. Once he discovered that I was ex-Air Force and he was in England and I was in Scotland and blah, blah, blah. We had Friday night tradition of going to Bowling Air Force Base Officers Club for the 2-for-1 happy hour. Right. It's amazing we ever got back home at times. Rennie enjoyed martinis.
Rennie he was a wonderful man.
He really was.
He was really a great guy.
Yes.
And was he with PGP pretty good?
Long time,
Prince George's property. And then later.
Right. They were Prince George's property at that point, and he went with them, and then they became PGP. Pretty good people.
Yeah. Yeah, Rennie was a great guy.
There's no one in the business like him anymore.
No, not at all.
He or Fred McKee, the old timers.
Oh, and Fred was great too.
Oh God, yes.
Well, we were in Kiwanis together with both of them, and Rennie Johnson he had such a good wit, as you know, and we all spent a little time after the Kiwanis meetings and
in the bar
at the country club over in Crofton, and one time I followed him home. I didn't know he lived near where I lived. And finally, he saw me moving through all these streets, and he finally pulled over as he turned his street and stopped and rolled the window down. I wanted to know who was following him. I said, well, I live right around, I'm turning left here, Rennie. Oh, what are you following me for? I said, well, number one, thank goodness I was, because you made me dizzy following you. But I moved, and then he talked about the rest of the time that I knew him. Can't forget Bert following me home. He thought I was following him home to help him out when he saw who it was. Yeah. But great guy, great family.
Yeah, great family.
And he would always he'd pick at other real estate guys in the Kiwanis, and he would accuse me of being Fred McKee Real Estate Company's protege, and he just had that kind of wit.
Right.
And yet very dry, but very direct, and sometimes pointed.
Yeah.
But this is the interesting part, Mike, about some of the experiences.
Well, he was from the right part of the country too, right, Bert?
Oh yes, he was.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He really was. And I'll never forget my last visit to him over at his house, and this was very close to, not long ago, before he left, he died. But anyway, the interesting thing is, he wanted to see me, and we chatted and had a nice long visit, because Thelma Harvey worked with him, and those are names we talk about, Mike. But I wanted to mention this: when you got back to Bowie and all, you went to work with the federal government, as I understand.
Right. Well, after a time, I went to law school. When I got back, I went.
Did you pass?
Yes, okay. I went to Georgetown.
Oh.
After I still working for the federal government, still in the Air Force in the beginning, and living in Bowie. Got out, and after a couple of years, I went to work with Dan Sherry here in town. And then I went back to the federal government, after that time.
That's right. I've forgotten about that.
So I was in practice here in Bowie. Yeah. Sherry and DiMario chartered. Teresa Nolan came in with us.
The lovely judge.
Right, Judge Nolan. And Teresa, a great addition. And we had an interesting law firm, and prior to Dan and I forming a partnership, I had really got involved with Dave Ross.
Oh, yeah.
So Ross and his brother Tom, Dave and Tom, but it was Dave.
Was it Jerry Devlin on that mix?
Right. It was Ross, Lochte, Murray, and Devlin.
Yeah.
Had formed a group together, and so we were down in the offices down there, and Dan Sherry was in there with them, but he was not part of their group. He just shared offices.
Dave Ross's son is now a state delegate.
Right, Justin Ross.
Justin Ross.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
And Dave comes up periodically and spends as much time visiting as he does down in Florida, I think. But,
I'd like to see him sometime.
He owns a place up here.
And Bowie?
In Bowie. It's in...
Probably holding on to it because its value is so low.
Right. Well, it's one of the newer places. I can't remember the name of the...
No, it's not Levittown.
No.
Oh, well,
But
that's not Bowie.
Next to Levittown.
Sorry.
So Dave and his daughter lives here in town, or did live here. I assume she's in one of the new developments, and he's still connected to his ex-wife, who lives over in, I think, the College Park area.
Oh, okay.
In fact, we saw her at someone's house here in Bowie within the last year.
Oh, wow. Let me ask you a question. You joined the city council in 1977. I have to confess at the time I used to be kind of critical of city council members until the new batches started driveling in. Who served with you on that first council?
Okay. Dick Logue, Audrey Scott. Audrey was the mayor. And we had Rich Bullman.
Oh, you're from South Bowie, yeah.
Yeah. Dick Arnold.
Grouchy Dick.
And later, Wall Planet, Bliss Cummings, Jack Jenkins towards the end, Fred Robinson towards the end.
Yeah.
Jack, not really towards the end, towards the middle.
Yeah.
And he was there for a long time.
23 years, I think.
And
Paget.
who? Paget.
Paget.
Yeah.
Dick Paget.
And Gene Kiley, and we had a young fellow from South Bowie.
He ran against Norm Cooper. Brian Clark.
Oh, yeah, Brian Clark.
Brian Clark.
Knocked off Norm Cooper.
Yeah.
During all those years, though, working with Gene Kiley, were you able to understand what the hell he was saying?
Gene, I sat next to Gene, and I learned an awful lot.
Oh, boy, the ultimate physicist.
Yeah. and in those days, we built the bio building. We had a contractor from Ohio, I believe, but it was the restroom facility at Allen Pond.
Yeah.
And it was built out of sludge, degradable sludge, and they had developed a process to do that. And Gene was in his glory.
Oh, I can imagine.
So, but we had some great times, and we also had a fellow from Texas. It was on Norm Cooper.
Oh, Norm Cooper, yeah.
Long time, and Norm was to the right, always to the right.
Yeah,
I forget that song from what 1776 or.
Yeah. To the right of Fred.
To the right, well, right. Norm.
Hard to be to the right of Fred.
Right. Norm had some views that were rather conservative at times, but so did Fred.
Yeah.
And Norm was a fine fellow, very much into his family biography. And,
He was a good councilman.
His wife, ex-wife, I guess, Beth, was a bodyguard for one of the Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
Ooh, I bet he didn't argue with her then.
So
Marshall.
he was a good guy, and we had a lot of good experiences.
Do you watch, or have you attended or taken any notice of the councils that have succeeded you, or do you just sort of?
To be honest, John, my life has been pretty involved in
Yeah.
other kinds of things over the years.